Well, I think we have enough to get started here at 6:02. We got some work ahead of us, a lot of great preparation by our finance department and city manager. So I am going to call to order the Royal Oak Special Commission meeting for Monday, May 17th for the budget to order. We're going to begin with a roll call vote. Mayor Mike Fournier zooming in from beautiful and wonderful Royal Oak. Commissioner Duba.
I am here in Royal Oak.
Commissioner Macy.
Here in Royal Oak.
Commissioner Perush.
Here in Royal Oak.
Commissioner Hunt.
Here in Royal Oak.
And Commissioner Douglas.
Here in Royal Oak.
And I suspect Commissioner Cole will be joining us shortly. So we'll proceed. This brings us to item 3 on tonight's agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Anyone wish to make a motion to approve the agenda? We have a motion by Commissioner Perush. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. All right, discussion on the approval of the agenda motion. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt.
Yes.
Commissioner Perush.
Yes.
Commissioner Macy.
Yes.
And Commissioner Dubuck.
Yes.
And I vote yes. An approved agenda. So this brings us to item 4, public comment. Ms. Schwanger, do we have any public comment for this evening?
Mayor Fournier and members of the City Commission, we've had no public comment called in this evening.
Okay, all right, we'll close public comment and we'll head to item 5, City Manager's Transmittal. Mr. Brake.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Fournier and members of the City Commission. I'm going to present an overview of the transmittal letter, and I'll ask Ms. Schwanger will share the screen and go through a PowerPoint presentation. And really what my intent is to take really a high-level view of the budget document. And as we get into this, we'll take a deeper dive. So this, of course, is my very first document. This Friday will be 1 year that I have been your city manager, and I came in right in the middle of the budget process last year. So this is the first attempt at this and really orchestrating all of our goals and objectives and to put them in motion and set timelines and alike. So we'll get into, on the next slide, just a very, very high level view of what we're proposing that will be included in the upcoming budget. And in that, we're taking on an ongoing effort of major infrastructure projects, which include water and sewer lines, replacing, relining sewer lines and alike. We're continually improving our roads and sidewalks, and there's a significant endeavor that's being done in especially in neighborhood streets. The next item that has been referenced on many occasions, and especially in the context of rezonings, is to update our master plan document. That's well overdue for updating, and that is included in the upcoming spending plan. Next, we turn to much of our attention has been on the sort of sustainability issues, and the one that becomes most front and center is stormwater, how we handle that, and alike, in producing green type of infrastructure that is a best practices of treating stormwater. Along those lines of sustainability, we're making quite an effort of looking at reducing our carbon footprint in many different ways, and especially as it relates to the use of electricity. This brand new City Hall building is a very good example of where we're just using far less electricity than our former facility. So that's something that's of interest of the commission that will continue on part of our goals. Last but not least is really increasing our staff capacity. We've identified different needs within our facilities as well as the 50 plus beautiful parks that we have here in the community. But nevertheless, it takes human capacity to meet the needs of the parks. So going on to the next slide from kind of an overview. So the total spending plan, these are operating accounts, and this is minus out the internal type of funds. But the overall spending plan is 184 million, which consists of the general fund, which is 46 million, and the public safety fund, which is included in there as well at an amount which you can't see on your screen, but it's 36.4 million. The millage that is included, now there's a little bit of a different variation that's discussed, but just keeping the millage where things are at right now is at 17.4679. That is a decrease because of Headley that results an overall decrease of 2.1% in comparison to the millage that's in the what I'll refer to as the prior budget. So in this upcoming spending plan, which is important, is that we include one-time projects in the general fund, which is a little less than 2 million, 1.9, primarily for parks. Then the balances for that master plan study that we refer to. So that's above and beyond. Along those lines, I point out that we have an additional $5 million transfer, an increase to the public safety fund. And why do I make an issue of that? Commonly, we look at the budget from one year to the next. In this upcoming spending plan does include an $8 million increase in the general fund, and it's worthwhile to account why. Part of when you compare the two funds is that in the what I referred to the prior budget year is that we received a significant amount of CARES Act funding. So those dollars are going away, and we now have the American Rescue Plan. I won't get into any of the particulars right now because that information is just so new and fresh. But from this 30,000 foot view, I want to give you that comparison. So this next chart just gives you real quickly a glance at kind of a 5-year perspective of how things compare. The special revenue funds, which include public safety and others, as well as the general fund, these are upward bound. Whereas water and sewer is holding pretty steady. Capital projects, there's really ebbs and flows to that. And the debt service fund is actually very slowly diminishing. But to look at it from a trend perspective is why you have this chart here. Getting into a little bit more specifics into the general fund, we'll talk about the general fund revenues, which is the next slide. This pie chart shows the overall breakdown of all the respective revenues. The greatest portion is the property taxes. And the part that has been a diminishing part of that pie is what's referred to as the grants. That's the state revenue sharing that's been diminished over a period of time. What has also occurred within the last few years, and especially as a result of the pandemic, is fines and forfeitures. We'll talk a little bit more about that of a lesser amount that's come in from district court. Then interest rates have been at an incredibly all-time low historic rate. So it's even a smaller portion. So looking at an overview of the general fund revenues on the next slide, the revenues are budgeted at 38.1 million. This is a $2.4 million decrease. As I mentioned before, property taxes, which consist of a little over 20 million, is a little over half. Even though state revenue sharing is expected to increase by 102,000, it's really not that much in the grand scheme of things. So it's, again, looking from a historical perspective of what the state is provided through state revenue sharing and the statutory as opposed to constitutional, it's been a decreasing sum. As I alluded to, court fines and revenues, they are increasing, but they're less than they were pre-pandemic. So just something to be mindful of in that regard. So we'll switch over to the next slide to the expenditures, which gives us an overall view of things. The transfers out. So what the general fund takes in is contributes to the public safety fund and makes contributions to other funds. So it's a larger proportion of the cost overall. So drilling down into the next slide, as I alluded to in the beginning, that we have these one-time projects that are above and beyond, which includes taking care of some parking lots at Memorial Park Golf Center, Star Road, and some additional improvements to the Centennial Commons, which includes the water feature and restroom facilities. Master plan that I've spoke of before. This position does include 4 new positions, a promotional opportunity in the city manager's office, creating a deputy city manager position, 2 park maintenance positions, then a building maintenance supervisor. So wanted to highlight that. Continuing on in the general fund and the expenditures, the personnel services are increasing a little over 8%. The wages for full-time employees, which include the new positions, is a little over $500,000. This was calculated based on anticipated wage increase of 2.5%. And that also includes the wage step increases for those employees that have not topped out their respective pay scales. Fortunately, we've been able to keep the health insurance premiums pretty modest. So that has not added to the inflationary cost. So continuing on, just to highlight very briefly, the other funds, major streets has stayed pretty continuous at a pretty modest increase, but we have construction projects that are included in there, and I believe that consists of Crooks Road. On local streets, we have, again, another modest increase of 2.5%, and what the mills specifically for the local streets will generate that 6.8 million, and that we're going to be constructing a little over 7 million worth of street projects. So continuing on, the next slide, talk about the public safety fund, total spending plan of a little over 36 million. That is about a 6.5% increase. So again, related to personnel cost. So as I alluded to before, if you recall on the pie chart for the expenditures, the largest portion that we have going out of the general fund is transferred to other funds. So the general fund is subsidizing the public safety fund, consisting of 62% of its entire revenues. So we do have personnel costs that are increasing because of newer employees and contractual wage increases and alike. Those healthcare costs is 520,000 that consists of that overall increase of that 2.2 million. Continuing on, the water and sewer funds, it's a relatively flat operation at 33.7 million. Little over half of that goes to our partners who we purchase water from, the Water Authority of Saukwa, as well as the County Water Resources Commission that handles the wastewater treatment. We do include, so there's 5 new positions, one of which is in the water and sewer, adding an additional supervisory position that can divide out the existing duties that are handled by one employee. So one employee will handle water and the other employee will handle the sewer. So want to spend a little bit of time making that connection and really emphasizing the goals in what are our outcomes. It's just not a spending plan, but we're trying to provide a public good. So the commission is outlined these specific goals. I'll just go through them very quickly, but just to recap, nevertheless, that we identified the infrastructure of maintaining them in a sound sort of way. We get into very specific programs that are underway right now as a mitigation strategy that I mentioned before, using green infrastructure. One is an ongoing project to replace lead and galvanized steel water leads. There's about 1,400 of these that were originally identified in a survey, and taken a pretty aggressive approach to replace these old service leads that go into residential homes. Part of our infrastructure, and the one piece that probably we can all relate to on a daily basis, is the roads that we travel. And that we use this very sophisticated system, this pavement surface evaluation and rating system, or what's called PASER. And PASER helps us to identify what is the condition of our streets and roads based on a numeric system. So as a road deteriorates, that we're not constantly chasing after roads that are beyond repair, that we take better care of them. So that's what's important about that. So getting into our next strategic goal, which is the operations, and it gets into a lot of human resource management issues of how we're able to attract and retain, and also develop our employees for promotional opportunities. Like most employers, we have an aging workforce, and we have people that will be aging out and perhaps leaving for other reasons, and that we have the ability through succession planning that we can promote the best possible employees to move up in the organization. The other item that's mentioned in there is this improving coordination and communication in city departments. And specifically, I talked about the ongoing issue that we have to best manage our real estate portfolio. And what has been identified is better communication through central management of those facilities. And so we've included that building maintenance manager that's included in the budget that will report to the Department of Public Services and Recreation. Of course, from a quality control perspective, that we continue to monitor what sort of user satisfaction, meaning that people come in the door. And right now, currently, even within our limited hours in City Hall, individuals who make appointments go through an appointment schedule system. And once they complete their appointment, we send them a survey and ask for their feedback. So we're already getting very good information from folks that are coming in the door. And then, of course, we talked about the Cobalt survey that gave us very good information that was mailed out between November and January at the end of last year, early this year. So last but not least is to take a deeper dive on our various commissions, task force. We have a number of committees that serve the city, but are they current, contemporary? Is it meeting the needs that we were hoping that they would upon the inception of these different groups? So that's going to be an ongoing effort. So continuing on, our strategic goal, communications, is very important, and we've made some headway there, but still some room for improvement. So providing proactive communication on all city projects, as we have many different endeavors going on, and find a way of engaging individuals through communications. And so we're all busy in our lives and raising families and taking care of people and going to work every day. How do we engage people where we can get that meaningful sort of impact? And that's something that I think will be kind of an ongoing conversation that we will have. And as a result, hopefully give us good information, making meaningful decisions along those ways. So that goal in itself is important for us to be mindful of. So continuing on, getting into community is engaging in that communications with our neighborhood associations. And part of the fabric of these neighborhoods is our parks. The interesting thing is that we received recognition, and hopefully I'm quoting this right, that 90% of the community is within a 10-minute walk of the park. And so that's uh, um, a fact to be very proud of, and something that to nurture and encourage. And so that part of that quality of life is very important. And so we recognize that through our strategic goals. So last but not least, what has been discussed midway towards the end of last year, but is still very much an important item, is to have an actionable plan on implementing the human rights ordinance and creating a human rights commission. Switching over, talk about coming out of hopefully soon, we can say post-pandemic, and talk about what is the longer term economic vitality. And a couple of issues that have been identified. One is being discussed at the Planning Commission right now, is looking at housing developments and how that meets gaps, the housing needs in the community, and how do we go about that. And perhaps that could be incorporated in as part of the master plan to come up with meaningful policy that makes measurable sort of change. The next item is that it relates to the development practice and the efficiency of private sector development. And what is meant by that, anyone who comes in that looks at developing a property, redeveloping, infill, and alike, interacts with our community development department. And we need to make certain that we can do our inspections on timely, very quickly, that there is the builders and developers are treated effectively and efficiently along those ways. And so there are ideas that we're bringing that will enable us to look at improving our processes already, and to streamline that, and recognize where the potential is. The one thing that I commonly talk about in development is that the one thing the city has control over is time. And through this process, if we can expedite this and look at from the time that someone makes application to the time that they receive their occupancy permit, and if we can shorten that time, not by cutting corners, but by doing this efficiently and effectively, where it becomes a predictable timeline for developers that'll make the community even that much more desirable. And that is part of an important goal that will come out of this process. Continuing on, keeping our own house in order, we need to go back. We kind of skipped a couple there. Going back to the fiscal end of things, I'll talk my way through it. On the fiscal management is that we look at preserving our finances through sound fiscal policy, that we look at measure that up, and how does that compare, in what direction that we're going, and also looking at community budget priorities is another important part. So going on to the next slide, public safety, of course, is the utmost concern, that we provide the highest quality of services. And through the recent public opinion survey, the public thinks very highly of both our police and fire departments. So much so, even higher than our comparable communities think of their own police and fire. And that's something to be very proud of. And how do we maintain that and even enhance the public safety? There's probably elements that part of the discussion that we're going through in this community of all stages is that we recognize that we have an aging population. And from the perspective of ambulance services and things like that, that'll become increasingly common, and something that we need to be mindful of. And so that intertwines in with public safety, as we look at are we continuing to provide the highest quality service. So that continues on as a strategic goal. So the last, and none of these are in any order, but this is just how they were presented when we went through the process. The last one is to talk about sustainability. And that gets into, as I mentioned in the beginning, as it relates to infrastructure and how we can meet the ever-changing sort of changing outdoor environment that's impacting us all across the globe and here locally. And especially as we have drier, warmer climates, and that's the amount of stormwater that comes in, and how do we best address that? These problems didn't occur overnight, and we're not going to solve them, but keeping them on the forefront and coming up with plans incrementally that we can make these changes where we can handle those sort of rain events that come in. Then on the flip side, like many entities, employers, and organizations really look at how can we consume less energy in order to produce our product. And this is something as leaders that we need to show our sustainability practice, that we can reduce the amount of electricity that we use in our facilities. We're looking at introducing new electric vehicles as part of our fleet. And over time that we can demonstrate to the community that we can accomplish these goals. So I went through a lot of information very quickly. Again, we're going to be taking a deep dive, but I wanted to give you kind of an overview of, I submitted to you a pretty detailed transmittal letter that gets into all the elements that is proposed in this budget. What I did not elaborate and spend a little bit of time on, again, the plan, we're spending out more than what we're taking in. And how are we going to offset that? As of last Monday, as I alluded to before, that there's this federal stimulus program that's very timely for our purposes, the American Rescue Plan. And at this point, I have more questions than I have answers. So I don't have any slides to show you to say how all of this works. This will dovetail into our discussion. There are a lot of revenues that the American Rescue Plan will be able to replace, where we've had decreased fines and fees and interest rates and things that compare to the revenues that we brought in pre-pandemic. There's also opportunities that we can provide direct assistance to businesses, to homeowners, and alike. And part of that, I think, would be important to go through prioritizing and to figure out where do we best meet those needs. Because when it's all said and done, I'm certain that we can come up with really more needs than we have resources. So for our purposes this evening is that we are taking into consideration the resources that we have and work within those. My thought is and recommendation is to show a robust plan where we can come out of the pandemic strong, that we can meet these needs, and that we can continue on what we've identified through the goals and objectives. And so we're in a better position to really pivot, to improve the community really from a long-term perspective. So that's what I'm submitting to you for your consideration. And I'll pause, and if there's anything that I glossed over too quickly, and again, over the next 3 days, we're going to take that deep dive into these specific funds, but I wanted to give you a 30,000 foot view and say, what does it look like? How are we doing? Where are we heading? And I'm hoping, based on what I presented to you, has answered some of those questions.
All right, Commissioner Macy.
Yes, thank you, Paul. And the transmittal letter, as I told you via email, I thought was fantastic, very detailed. I loved how it lined up so well with our goals and really walked through what we're doing this year and what we hope to be doing in the future. I was very thrilled with the transmittal letter. I thought it was a great summary, and I thought it was better than a 30,000 foot view. It was the 30,000 foot view that sometimes zoomed in that was really helpful. I had thought when we were first talking about the American Rescue Plan, money a few months ago that we were going to be talking about that in this context as well. But it seems like this whole budget has been done without the benefit of that 28 million. And I understand that. I understand this is our city budget we need to balance our budget based on the revenues that we're going to have coming in for the longer period of time. When and how do you anticipate are looking at those American Rescue Plan funds, both for this upcoming year and for the next 3 years? It sounds like, are we going to have separate work sessions for that? Is there going to be an additional budget meeting? Like, when and how is that taking place?
Well, there's a couple things to keep in mind, that when those funds do arrive, and it's anticipated sometime later this month or next month, it's in 2 cash distributions, half this year and half this time next year. We have until 2024 to spend these monies. So the good news is we don't have to figure out, every little bit of them. What I would suggest is that perhaps by the time that the budget is adopted in June, that we set some real basic parameters, that we do something like this. We say, out of the 28 million, we're going to use this portion to help bring our operations, make it whole. As if, the pandemic didn't occur and, everything was just moving right along smoothly. Then the rest of the percentages come up with allocations to what sort of endeavors that we would like to pursue, whether it's along our goals, or we establish, maybe 1 or 2 one-time projects, things like that. So I think there's some opportunity to do that. What I would suggest for the purposes of adopting the budget is that Julie and I'll need to kind of roll up our shirt sleeves and get into very specific dollar amounts where we can replace those funds, and come back to you and say, we think out of that, we're going to need X percent. Then following that, I'll give you some ideas of how we can engage in a dialogue, but don't feel rushed to do something with this. And I know that there'll be conversations with other partners, whether it's neighboring communities, and I think there will be some other dialogue that'll be going on in Oakland County that they're asking, and which frankly I don't think is a bad idea, that we can leverage the monies where potentially we could combine our efforts with other communities to really maximize these dollars and make a powerful impact into the region. And so we'll wait and see when that information comes in. But that's what I would suggest, that we'll integrate that in as part of the conversation. But what I don't want to do is to show you something and then they have to pull it back and to say, well, what the feds have given us is what they call interim rules, and they're taking input through July. So right now things are in a public comment phase. So that's why I'm a little reluctant to say, all right, here's a blueprint the way this thing could look like. So I want to be real careful about that. There's some things that I can feel a little bit more confident, but there's other elements that I'm not so sure about. So hopefully I've answered your question and give you kind of an idea how we'll get there.
Yeah, that helps to understand
Okay.
why we're taking some time to do this. And I'm not trying to spend the money before we've even received it, but I've also saw our interest rates, and I don't want that money sitting in the bank too long when we could be putting it to work for the good of Royal Oak. So that was just my question. The other question I had, a larger question, was about marijuana tax money, which we assume we'll be seeing sometime in the next year or two. I didn't see that anywhere in here, any kind of assumption about it or any mention of it at all. Is there any news on that?
From what I understand, and Julie can correct me if I'm wrong, there was a distribution that was made to communities that have already had marijuana establishments. And I want to say, I'm talking off the top of my head, but I think it's 56,000 per establishment. But I think that's based on the revenues that they produce. That the state captures and kind of like a sales tax sort of distribution that comes back to the local communities. So we don't have any basis of comparison. I mean, we could have thrown something in there, but without knowing that, it's a little hard to predict. The other thing is that by the time that we go through the licensing and they go through a site plan review, honestly, we could be looking at the end of the calendar year, really before someone would be completing the process. So, you know, there again, then we would be looking at like a partial year capture that someone would be operating. So it wouldn't be until the, you know, until the following fiscal year that we'd even be able to appreciate a full year's worth. Because I think it's a lagging distribution. I think they collect the money and then distribute that. But I'll pause and I don't know how closely Julie has looked at that, or if it's just kind of you know, kind of more in the periphery.
The Act 51 rates do include the state of Michigan's Treasury Department's estimates for the impact. I think they call it the ORTA. In the major and local road funds, there is some consideration for the marijuana tax, but nowhere else in the budget.
Just as we're looking to add new personnel, it seems like if we're going to be having another regular revenue stream, would be something we should possibly consider as we look at it.
Right. We don't want to fund long-term positions out of short-term funding, and that would be an ongoing funding. And I'd just like to add remark as well to Mr. Brake's comments. To Commissioner Macy's question was a good question. You know, these American Rescue Plan funds, it's kind of similar to where we were last year in a way where we are uncertain, kind of the inverse in a way, where we are uncertain what the state statutory revenue share was going to be. And we kind of had to plan a budget and move forward. And as we found things, we made, you know, some adjustments and audibles and, you know, that's par for the course. So this approach makes sense, especially since what we had to deal with on the onset of this pandemic last May. I think I saw Commissioner Douglas with her hand up. Yeah, Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It seems funny that a year ago we were all up in a tizzy because our fund balance ratio was at 28%. And our charter says it's only supposed to be at, I think, a maximum of 25%. Well, we don't really have that problem anymore. We've got a fund balance ratio of 10%. And as we look forward over the coming years, it declines into negative territory. We have items in this budget, new employees, inevitable wage increases, pension and healthcare increases. These are operating expenses that will be long-term, and only a percentage of those are going to be able to be addressed by the American Rescue Plan. So I think we need to be thinking overall about, how we address that long-term fund balance deficit. I'm looking to staff here to come up with ways, if there's more revenue, if there's less spending, but it doesn't look like there's less spending when you propose adding 5 employees. I'm concerned that we need to be ahead of this. We need to have a strong policy about our fund balance and live by it.
So let me respond that in this plan, the way that I look at this and with the assistance of the American Rescue is that we really have 3 years to look at aligning the organization, whether we look at increased revenues or decreased expenditures or a combination of things. So again, this trajectory has been in a path for some time. So what isn't anything that's occurred as of late. So that's the fortunate thing. We do have these renewals that are coming up, and that was kind of introduced as part of the letter that, this is the time that we now need to look at what is the appropriate funding level. And so what has been set in place 10 years ago, is that the appropriate amount going into the future? So also I allude to in the letter that there's things that we're willingly taking on additional responsibilities. And when we do that, there are costs associated with that. So if it's something that's of value, hopefully there would be that support to fund those type of programs. If not, we're going to have to make other adjustments. But I do point out that when you look at 16 years ago, we had a much larger workforce than we do now. So we have achieved some efficiency, and I think that that's worth noting as we look at when we get into the dialogue with the community and see what that level of support is and what that willingness is if we did explore adjusting the mills, especially when we talk about the public safety millage that's coming up and what is that appropriate amount? The appropriate amount to adequately fund the police and fire services. So point well taken. We will not solve it in this upcoming budget, but that's what I would suggest to you is that we really have 3 years to realign the organization and to figure out, you know, where are we heading with this and how are we going to make this work?
I suspect next year we'll have a better indication of what interest rates are, inflation rates and things of that nature, and maybe even some work done on Headley, you know, so we have a few things that, you know, we just don't know at this time that'll, well, I think influence over the next few years, you know, what the best decision is. I mean, clearly we see folks offering $15 an hour for entry-level fast food, you know, that's going to drive some inflationary costs for businesses and municipalities alike. So we gotta figure out, and that might be, we might get that. I mean, our interest income has been really low, so our interest income may grow to offset that cost. So there's a lot of little moving parts here we got to look at. I think I saw hands. I think I saw Commissioner Colo. He hasn't chimed in yet, and I apologize. Like 3 or 4 people put up their hand at the same time, and I noticed Commissioner Colo right in front of me. So Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize for being late. I was taking my turn on the wrecking ball for the city hall. So, and I'm
okay, I'm Mark Tardy.
So I'm here in Royal Oak. So I have a quick question for Mr. Brake and Ms. Rudd, and then I'll drop out of this. So I don't want to add a lot to the conversation about how to use ARP money or anything. I just, Mr. Brake, do we have a sense of how much money the pandemic's cost us so far? I mean, do we know those numbers? So, and I want to look at that when looking at this budget, how much money we've lost over the last, 14, 16 months now.
Well, there's 2 answers to that question. There's direct and indirect costs. Direct costs that we can definitely equate for that. Our accounting system is pretty sophisticated here, and we've used that as it relates to the CARES Act funding. So Julie and her staff have segregated out those CARES Act eligible sort of costs. Additionally, we did compile other information and applied for other dollars, but were turned down. So there are very specific dollar amounts that we can equate for. One thing that the ARP makes the distinction is the point in time, what were the revenues on or before January of 2020, then moving forward. And we can certainly compare, 2 years side by side to one another and say, this is what the impact is. So we most certainly can come up with, an impact to the organization. That's the process that we'll have to go through to justify in saying that, hey, this is where we can take that portion of the grant. Now, the indirect that I suggest to you is, what is the greater impact to the community? What is the impact to the families? What's the impact to the small business? And we can go on and on. It's definitely a multiplier sort of effect. And do we have the ability of remedying that through this program? And I think that'll be part of this journey, to have that meaningful dialogue and where we decide, where can we allocate those dollars and make the best use of the funds.
And I appreciate that. And like I said, one thing I'm looking at is for this year's budget, looking at what we've lost, and knowing what may have been in the past, what we've lost, and then what recovery might look like. Extrapolating from that, looking into my crystal ball, so to say. But if I could start with the baseline of knowing those numbers, I think that would help me in the future.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the transmittal letter? Commissioner Macy.
Just want to clarify, since Commissioner Douglas took a shot and used the wrong number, 10% is the projection for next year. It is currently at either 20 or 28%. It is higher than it was projected to be last year. So the 10% is the projected number for next year. And as I have said at every budget meeting that I've been part of, the projections have always been, in our experience, lower than the actual, and for which we are greatly appreciative of our finance director and our city manager for keeping us in bounds, keeping us and to have a conservative, careful budget. But it is not 10% this year.
Yeah. So one thing that's definitely softened the blow, if you will. So the current year, and I know this will be confusing when I talk about past and current, but the year that we're in right now, in the 2021, because of the CARES Act funding that has come in, you're right, Commissioner Macy, when this time last year, that we were looking at, again, same scenario of spending out more than what we were taking in, but because of the CARES Act, that we'll finish this current 2021 year, we're going to be in pretty decent shape, and Julie will speak to that. Ms. Rudd will give you some details. So you are correct. As we get further along, and especially in the next few years are going to be kind of bumpy, until we get through this. And so it's probably better that we have much more conservative estimates and to, scale back on them and then go the other direction and say, oops, sorry, didn't see that one coming. We're in a lot worse shape. So
And I'll just add, guys,
for my understanding,
we're not out of the woods yet.
I'm looking at page 34, the second column. Perhaps Ms. Rudd can help me understand my error.
From the current year's projected 28.7% to 10.5%. Budgeted to decline in the fiscal year 21-22. That's this up. Wait, no, that is this year. She has the dates wrong. But so it's from the current projected 28.7 to 10.5 next year.
Yeah, when you say next year, you mean 22, 23?
I think I see what you're saying. The dates I think are wrong here. But
22. If you go to page 84.
No, 21. Yeah.
If you go to page 84 and you look at the budget summary schedule on the bottom, you'll see the 21-22 recommended budget, which is the second column of numbers. And then, you'll see the combined public safety and general fund projected fund balance is the 10.47% on the very bottom. That is 21-22.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So again, that's making the assumption that it's the general fund will be that entire fund balance will make up for that difference. Now, of course, that goes back to Commissioner Colo's question. How much of that will be coming from the ARP? We're not identifying that in this exercise.
And I think, even though we've turned a corner and people are getting vaccinated and, businesses have been hanging on, at least some of them by, a thread, we're not out of the clear yet. We don't know. We've never endured this. There's no timeline on this pandemic. And so we may find ourselves using that ARP money to continue to support businesses, people that lose their jobs, food pantries, things of that nature. So I think the approach we're taking, at least as outlined in the transmittal letter, is appropriate. As time goes on and as we feel more comfortable and like Mr. Bragg said, we have higher confidence about what the future looks like and we have more, input, such as interest rates and inflation rates and stuff like that. We got a few years to, focus those funds in the right places to do the most good. But it's still also primarily a backstop in the event that, things go off course again with a variant or something like that. And again, this is me and probably Commissioner Bruce and Commissioner Duboc last time were very conservative with cash balances, but that's my opinion. Commissioner Macy.
So I just want to say, I think Commissioner Douglas thinks that proved her point, but I also think it proved my point, because the hand-wringing was about the 25% projected for the year we're entering, and we're in fact ending at 28%. And so next year we're projecting 10, you see? So that's what.
Okay, I take your point. Yes, you are correct.
Okay. I hereby declare a mayoral decree that you are both right. So we can move on. Okay. So we still have questions on the transmittal letter. Mr. Brake, anything more to add? Ms. Rudd, anything more to add on the transmittal letter?
No?
No, I think the information speaks for itself. And so I hope that you find that helpful. And, you know, the other thing is that we set some dates out there. So hold us accountable.
Oh. And Mr. Brake, I think who's going to find it even more helpful are the folks that, read it as far as outside of us, right? So I think that the community at large, if they have an interest in what's going on this fiscal year, it's very, like Commissioner Macy said, it's very helpful to kind of just have this story, because if you go straight to the spreadsheets, what do you understand? You know, all the spreadsheets represent a narrative, and it's good to map that out in a way that fits our priorities.
Well, exactly. So I know that obviously all of you are very well versed with the different groups, and working in the planning commission and other endeavors and things like that. But you're correct. For someone that's not well versed in the government speak, and look at this from the outside and say, what in the world do you do? And that we can relate this and to say, this is what's important. It's outcomes. How do we improve lives, make things better, leverage resources to get the maximum output? And that's what the time and effort that was put into the letter to really connect those dots and to describe the end products. And so I would say look for similar correspondence in future years, and to get into that detailed discussion of what are the things that we're keeping track of and that we intend to get done.
Good way of putting it. All right, so we'll move on to item 6, which is the budget executive summary, full budget document link above. And I believe this is going to go over to Ms. Rudd, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, we can't see you do your interpretive dance, Ms. Rudd. I guess we'll have to look at the PowerPoint presentation.
Can you see it?
We can see. I can see it. I can. Yep. So the others can too.
Good. Okay. All right. Yeah, the executive summary is located on pages 32 through 34. I am not going to go over that. Mr. Brake went over quite a bit of the high-level information, which is also in the executive summary. Much of the reference in the executive summary is relative to the fiscal year 2021 projected year-end numbers. So just keep that in mind while you're reading that. That is referenced also in those pages, but which is a little different than the original budget and the amended budget. It's how we think we're going to come in at the end of the year. Again, is the reference point in that letter. I will begin though with details of the budget resolution, which is on pages 38 through 42. And this is the resolution that we will have before the City Commission on June 14th, when the public hearing will be held for the budget and the millage rates. Beginning on page, actually 38 is the first resolution, which authorizes the general fund and the special revenue fund budgets. There are additional budgets that you see in your budget document, including debt service funds, capital improvement funds, enterprise funds, and internal service funds. These are not officially adopted, So you do not see those in your budget resolution. Next.
Wait, I'm sorry, Julie, can you say those funds again? I'm sorry.
Sure. Actually, if you go to your budget book and you see the tabs, everything after special revenue tab, the balance of those fund types are not included in the budget resolution. So only the general fund items and then the funds behind the special revenue tab.
Thank you, ma'am.
That makes sense? Okay. Resolution number 2 authorizes the millage rates that support the budgeted funds that are under item number 1. So, and we'll be going through those in detail in a few slides. Resolution number 3 authorizes the tax administration fee of 1%. That goes into the general fund, and that supports the treasury and assessing functions. Resolution number 4, that authorizes our water and both storm sewer and sanitary sewer disposal rates. And we'll go through that, the details in that Wednesday night, this Wednesday or next Wednesday. I'm not sure how quickly we'll get to water and sewer fund. It's near the end. Resolution number 5, that is on the top of page 42. And that authorizes the administration to incur and pay utilities and sole source type purchases prior to going to commission for approval on a purchase order or through the claims process. Resolution number 6, there is a request to change. This resolution authorizes the administration to process purchase orders currently under $10,500 administratively and not go before the commission for approval. And also the current authorization allows for a public works projects under $25,000 not to be bid. This request here in the current budget recommended budget is to increase the purchase order threshold that needs to go to commission from $10,500 to $15,000. And then the public works improvement for bidding threshold to increase from $25,000 to $35,000. Resolution number 7 authorizes the finance director to transfer 25% of the Act 51 monies that goes into the major street fund over to the local street fund if necessary. It does not appear that that will be necessary based on the recommended budget, but it also authorizes the finance director to move with money administratively within appropriation centers if necessary. So anything that is outside of appropriation center. So basically what that means is from line item to line item within an appropriation center, I would be authorized to move. Anything outside an appropriation center is approved by way of a budget amendment by the city commission. And then resolution number 8 authorizes the city to pay CMN 1/2 of the 1% PEG fees that we receive. This has been going on for at least 10 years at the 1/2 level. And then resolution number 9 is to reaffirm the numerous fiscal policies that are on pages 47 through 55. Okay, and then just to touch quickly on those policies, there are no recommended changes. The policies include the attrition policy, capital assets, capital improvements, debt management, fund balance policies, investments, retirement contributions, and self-funding funds policy. If there's no questions on the resolution and the policies, we'll jump to page 69.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rudd, I have a question on the policies. And maybe, Mr. Mayor, this is more appropriate for you. Do you want discussion on these policies now, or would you rather that happen at the end?
Well, I think this is going to be the only place today we're really covering them, but I mean, if you have a question now, it's helpful for preparation when we go to vote on them.
Okay. So I do have, Mr. Rudd, you and I spoke about the attrition policy, and there is a portion of it that, talks about the approval of a new full-time employee or replacing a full-time employee. And it just seems like some of the language in here seems to be language that's no longer used or maybe a little bit outdated. So that's in the attrition policy. And then, if we want, if we wanted to set new policies, perhaps, look at this budget document, maybe in the future, it'd be better planning if we had this document 2 weeks before this first meeting. Would this be the place to do that?
Commissioner Colo, the policies, most of them are long-standing in previous years. So, I know Ms. Rudd did highlight a couple changes related to, purchase values, going 15 and 35,000, but most of the other ones are, long-standing. So nothing says we can't change a policy, just like we vote each one of these policies in. If you have an initiative that you think needs to be looked at or evaluated, it doesn't have to be done, with this. We can, just like we make budget amendments, we can make policy amendments as well down the road if we need to. It's just a matter of prioritization coming from January, when we made our priorities for the year, all the way through when something pops up that we feel like we need to address. So it's not as if we as a team have to solve everything right now. But if you have some ideas, certainly we can take a look at those and update our policies.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. Commissioner Macy.
I don't know if this is the time, so if it's not the time, just tell me. The raising of the water billing fee, which I feel like we just did, and I know that that's, there's a lot of expenses involved with water and sewer, but having it all tagged onto that administrative fee seems like a lot. I wonder if, is that just our way of doing that?
This would be the time to discuss when we get.
Okay. Yes,
I mean, this budget process would be the time to discuss that. I think when we get to the, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Rudd, but when we get to the water fund discussion, we'll understand all the nit and gritty with the rates. That's something we don't want to redo, because things get put into place. So through this budget cycle, we want to approve the millage rates, and we want to approve the water rates and sewer rates. But when we get to those funds, I think we can find out the details of why they've changed. Correct, Ms. Rudd?
Correct. I can give a general statement. That admin fee is a quarterly fee. It is going up $1, which amounts to $4 a year. What we are doing is we're trying to really find our fixed admin billing costs and allocating them more specifically. And we're correcting that. So really some of those fees were in the commodity rate, and we're just pushing that over to the billing rate because they are more aligned with billing costs. So it's people were paying, we were recovering that in the commodity rate, and now we're just recovering it in that flat rate because we are more specific about how we're allocating our costs to the different functions, and it is more aligned with billing costs. So that's why that's changing. So we have been changing that $1 a year until we get it correctly in line. So, that's the reason for that. So we're close. We're very close now. We're not going to see, I don't think, more than another year of $1 recommendation.
Okay.
Next
Thank
year,
you.
we'll probably do
Saying is that we're getting to the point where we want to charge our fixed costs in a fixed way to the water customers and our variable costs in a variable way to the water customer. And it just takes a little time to bridge there, hence the $1 admin fee for fixed costs.
So
our fixed billing costs, to be specific. There are our fixed billing costs.
yeah, that makes sense to me. That the billing cost would be separate. It just, I know that I've heard from other people, and to me as well, like $52 a year for it to be billed for something. Is that the right word for what that fee is? That it's really just a billing fee? So I guess when we get to the cost center, we can talk more about what exactly is incorporated into that. That's why I wasn't sure if it was here or later. So I understand about the allocation. It just feels like a lot of money to be billed.
Okay.
We can get
Okay, I'm sorry. Are we ready for the millage rates?
yeah, I think just on that request, I think Commissioner Macy will want to understand a little bit more of the breakdown, and whether that comes to us during that discussion or something you have to, a sheet you can pass along to the commission, Ms. Rudd. I think that's hopefully it's not 6 hours of work. It's just one of the checklist items as we go through this.
No.
But yes, we're for the millage rates.
Okay, yeah, I have a note. I've got the note to get that breakdown. Okay. For the millage rates, a decrease of 0.3817 is included in the proposed rate of the 17.4679. Can you see my cursor? Okay. When I move that on the screen. Yeah, okay. This does not include the DDA, so this is what the residents would see. And it's mostly due to some slight reductions in the debt millages, which are the fire debt here, the 0.2056, and also our newer debt millage, which is our drain debt millage, being reduced to 0.8220. And this is the millage that we collect to pay our Chapter 20 Coon Drain debt from the county. In addition, there's some Headley reductions to our maximum rates. So our general levy is being reduced due to Headley. Our publicity, we levy at a rate to generate the $50,000. So that is not affected by Headley. Solid waste, the 2.5768, that's the combination of the state legislation that authorizes us to levy in addition to our charter millage. Our charter millage is not being recommended to be levied at its maximum allowable rate. That is going to be levied, if approved, at 0.6940. We are authorized to levy 0.9304. So the 6940 is in this 2.5768. The balance of it is the state statute that authorizes us to levy for refuse. So the 0.6940 is the exact same rate as what we're levying the current fiscal year. The library millage is affected by Headley to 0.8956. And that's the fire debt retirement. This is the last year for the debt. So 21-22 is the last time we will levy the 0.2056. So in fiscal year 22-23, this will be zero. The public safety millage, the Headley max is 3.7120. This is the 5th year of the 5-year renewal. So this is the last year we are authorized to levy. Local road millage, this is the maximum allowable millage rate, 2.3344. And then again, here's the drain debt to pay our chapter 20 county drain debt off. So on the bottom here is the DDA levy that was reduced to 1.6003. And the total city and DDA operating is 19.0682 recommended. The Headley rollback for the city rates was 0.9881 this year. And the DDAs in here. DDAs, I think it was 0.9989, I believe.
Macy, you have a question?
9989.
I just have a quick question, and I'm probably reading this wrong, but I'm just eyeballing these numbers. It looks like they've all gone down their Headley amount. Why does the drain debt seem like it's gone down more than all the rest? Like proportionally, has it not?
We levy what is equivalent to the revenue we have to generate to pay the debt.
Oh,
So that just fluctuates. And so, yeah, we paid a decent amount off last year. So,
great, thank you.
And others, I can only see Commissioner Macy and Commissioner Douglas and Commissioner Colo. So the others, if you have questions, just chime in. My screen is limited.
okay. So on page 72, I'll lose my voice already. This is sort of an unfair chart, but we put it in there anyways, just so you have an idea where the recommended millage rate is in comparison to the surrounding communities. In this chart is the recommended Royal Oak millage of 17.4679. However, the other villages are from the current fiscal year for the other communities, because we just don't know yet what they're recommending. It's a little bit of apples and oranges comparison, but it gets you an idea of where the recommended budget or recommended millage is compared to the other communities. So you see here that the proposed millage rate puts Royal Oak below 8 and above 3 of the neighboring communities that Royal Oak touch. And then the balance of the communities are cities in Oakland County. Page 66. Once we get out of the trends and highlights section, we'll be going more in order in the book. So a little bit of flipping back and forth right now. But page 66 is the taxable values. I'd like to go over just briefly. The total taxable value increased 4.9% for 21-22 fiscal year. Residential increased 4.3% nearly. Commercial increased nearly 7.3%. Industrial increased 2.7%, and personal property increased 7.3%. The 10-year average this chart has is approximately 3.7%. Pages 79 and
Sarah, I have a question.
sorry.
So Ms. Rudd, do we anywhere calculate what this is our taxable value. Do we anywhere calculate what it would be, what it is compared to the rate of inflation? I mean, to show the Headley effect?
We don't have that anywhere in the budget document. I will say that the inflation factor for this year's Headley calculation was 1.4, but that lags a year, I think. So, but no, we don't have anything in the book that compares the two.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
We have something that shows proposal A though, right? The next page. Is that what you're asking for, Commissioner Douglas? The assessed versus taxable value and the lost to us in dollars?
Oh yeah, that does it.
Yeah, but that doesn't have the inflation factors on that page.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Page 50 and 60, 61 are the all fund summaries of revenues. I'm going to skip over those. Mr. Brake went over a lot of those totals already. But I will stop at page 58. I want to mention a couple of things. This does not include the American Rescue Plan grant revenues yet. And I just want to be a little specific about the guidance. It is very generic right now and very vague. So as Mr. Brake said, it's going to be a little while before we get some good guidance. That is really the main reason why this is not incorporated into the budget at this point. But certainly it's something that as soon as we get some guidance, we can amend the budget in July or as soon as we're able to do that. I also want to mention that the recommended budget assumes that we're ramping up operations back to normal as of July 1st, 2001. For the most part, the revenues that were assumed, we're basically looking at 3 years prior to COVID hitting and taking the lowest of the 3 years and basically assuming that for our revenue. Page 57 details the increases and decreases in the particular positions. The deputy city manager is an add. The building maintenance manager. There's a parks maintenance worker. There's a parks forestry supervisor. a water sewer supervisor, a librarian, 1, and a reduction of an appraiser in the assessing office. So that nets to 5. And we'll be going over, we'll be mentioning those again when we get to those funds and cost centers. The capital improvement summary, $29.2 million is recommended. Major street improvements, $4 million. Local street improvements, 7.1. Water and sewer, 5 million. Motor pool replacement program, 2.25 million. Park development, almost 6.5 million. IT, 479,000. Uniform garbage bins, 1.8 million. Fire station improvements, 555,000. And farmers market improvements, almost $50,000. And we'll talk more about the specifics of those totals once we get into the funds and the cost centers. Okay. Are there any questions before we move into the general fund? The general fund revenues, excluding the transfers in, increased $1.8 million or 5.1% relative to the 21-22 estimated year-end revenues. General fund tax revenues are budgeted to increase 3.1% or $617,000. State shared revenue is budgeted to decrease 2.8% or $129,000. And this is based on using the state of Michigan's projection, again, which has been consistent in all the recommended budgets that have been delivered. And my understanding is the State Revenue Consensus Committee believes that sales tax revenue spiked at the beginning of COVID last year. So they think it's going to come down a little bit. So that is their reasoning for that. By the way, last year at this time, we scaled back on the state shared revenue assumption that went into to the budget. And the good news is it's looking like it is coming in at the higher state rate. So that is positive news for the 2021 budget. Cable franchise fees are budgeted to decrease 7%. It's approximately $68,000. This has been a trend, unfortunately, for the last 4 years, consistently right at 7% a year. Landlord license budget is increasing 35%, about $100,000, but that's due to the additional license renewals that the code enforcement department does every other year. So they do more every 2 years. So you see that go up and down each year. Other grants budgets are decreasing $440,000 to zero because that is CARES Act revenue that we got this year and we don't anticipate next year. Contributions are decreasing 55% or about $47,000 due to one-time election contribution we received in 2021. And then our interest income is decreasing dramatically. We've already seen that in the last year due to the interest rates just plummeted. And in addition, and the assumption is we're going to keep them lower because there's really, I don't want to go out on the limb and assume that they're going to increase. And in addition, we're anticipating our fund balance to shrink. So that is the reason for the low interest income number.
Next question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So the grants budget that's decreasing by so much, that $444,000, was that in there when we approved the budget last year, or was that an add-on throughout the course of the year? That amount. Okay. So yeah, last year this time we also had zero, and next year we might have, that might be 14 million, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then is 25%, 25,000? It's only going down 25,000. Why did I think it was more? Is that right?
25% to Yeah, I have a screen slide in a minute that we'll see that detail.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, I can't see you guys, so you're gonna have to speak up. Go ahead, Commissioner Colo.
thank you. Mr. Rod, just a quick question, and what chalk this up to being the new commissioner. What are the landlord license agreements that we have?
Yeah, my understanding is that if people rent their home, they need to sign up with code enforcement, and they go out for an inspection on the rentals.
Got it. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a quick favor. Ms. Rudd, would you say the page number when you that corresponds to your slides, please?
Oh, sure. This is 83.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This next is also on 83. This is just the remainder of the first paragraph on page 83. The following revenues are increasing due to the negative impact we had of COVID this year. So again, we're hoping that things are going to start ramping up. So right-of-way is increasing by $30,000. Probation court fees increasing by 70. Criminal traffic increasing by 1.1 million. Civilian court increasing by 60,000. Birth certificates, 30,000. Death certificates increasing 20. Site plan, 23,000. Dream cruise, approximately 105,000. And then parking violations are budgeted to increase $250,000.
Is that parking violation budget, is that assuming the same system or assuming a new system?
The same system.
Okay, thank you.
And not sure if the new system, if we're going to be recording the revenues that go to the vendor, or if they're just going to be taken off the top prior to recording the revenues. If they get 50%, it might just end up actually being the same anyway. So 73 has the state shared revenue graph. I just wanted to point out the 21-22 is going to be 129,000 lower than 2021. And I also want to point out here the peak in 1999-2000 was almost $1.6 million more. And that is not adjusted for inflation. So the general fund interest revenue, here I show this graph because of the 2007-2008 revenue to the general fund was almost $1.5 million that we were able to use to help offset operations. And that has declined steadily over the years up until about 17-18 started climbing again. But we're back where we were about 10 years ago again with very low interest rates and also anticipated fund balance. So our estimated for 2021 is 40,000. So we had a higher budget, but it's coming in at 40,000, we believe, and next year 30,000. So I believe about 13 months ago, rates were at about 260 basis points. Now they're probably at about 30. So significant difference. And of course, we had a higher number budgeted in the recommended and adopted budget for 2021 as well.
Very interesting or less interesting this year.
Yeah.
Sorry, bad joke per slide allocation. I haven't taken full advantage of it.
So page 83, right below the, about the center of the orange box are the transfers in notes to the general fund. The transfer is $737,000 total, which is about a $602,000 decrease from 2021. And that's due to the elimination of a one-time transfer of $600,000 from the Parks Capital Fund, which was returning the monies that were loaned during fiscal year 1920 for the Normandy Oaks Park development. And that $737,000 transfer in that's budgeted for next year is the DDA's contribution for the Centennial Park portion of the WROK project debt payment. And then near the bottom of page 83 is the narrative. And then on the bottom of page 85 is the expenditure table. But total expenditures for the general fund, excluding transfers out, are budgeted to increase 18.6% or $3 million relative to the 2021 estimated year-end expenditures. Personnel budget is increasing nearly 16%, $1,456,000. Supply budget is increasing 8.5%, $42,250. Capital budgets are increasing $675,000. Other budgets that include expenditures such as contractual services and transfers out are increasing 28.5%, which is approximately $7.1 million. And then the debt remains constant. And then we'll get in further into these expenditures as we go through the various cost centers in the general fund. And then again, on page 83, at the very bottom is the transfers out. They total $26,762,940, which is a 30% increase, which is $6,169,500. The last slide of the general fund cost centers, we will go into the details of the transfers out. And then on the top of page 84 is the narrative for the general fund and public safety fund balances combined. 21-22 budget provides for a combined use of nearly $9 million from both fund balances as a revenue source. The 21-22 combined ending fund balances are projected to be the 10.5% or $6.3 million, which is within the fund balance policy, as the fund balance policy is 10 to 25% of expenditures. However, the projected forecast shows a continuous structural deficit with the use of fund balance between $7 million to $9 million annually, which won't be there. The forecast assumes that the public safety millage is renewed and levied beginning fiscal year 22-23. And again, just another note that there's no consideration for the ARP grant revenues here in this fund. Page 84 on the bottom has the combined fund summary forecast. So as Commissioner Macy and Commissioner Douglas were discussing earlier, The estimated year end is the column where we think we're going to come in as of the spring when we were preparing the recommended budget. So combined at about 28.6% of fund balance. So the second column is the 21-22 budget, and the use of fund balance for the general fund is about $8.1 million. That would leave us with approximately 5.5 ending fund balance in the general fund, 11.6%. And then when you come down to the public safety fund, net use of fund balance about 895,000. That would leave 812,000 for a total of about 10.5%. And then you look at the forecast. These are important rows. If you can see my cursor, if you just quickly look, about $7 million use of fund balance. That will put the general fund in a deficit position of about $1.5 million. And if you just go across here, it grows to 7.5 million, 8 million, and then almost 9 million you needed in fund balance. And of course, that's not there. And then you see the deficit growing from 1.5 million, 9 million, 17.1, 25.6. Again, that's just the general fund. And basically what that is that's transferring over what the public safety fund needs, and that stays in the black. But when you look at the combined fund balance levels, 22-23 is a negative 1%, 23-24 negative 14%, 24-25 negative 26.9%. And then the last year, almost 40%. This summary assumes a renewal of the public safety millage only.
Wait, I'm sorry. So other millages such as the refuse and others are not assumed to be renewed in this?
Yeah, this is, yes, correct. This is just the general fund and the public safety funds.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, if there's no questions, we can go on to the cost centers within the general fund. Page 87 is the mayor and city commission cost center. And the only material item that we have here is dues and memberships and training are increasing due to a new membership, and that's the Woodward Avenue Action Association. Page 91, I have 2 slides for the court. We've got a lot going on there. What you'll find in our orange significant note boxes, most of the time an explanation that personnel costs are increasing when there are newer individuals that are working in that particular fund or cost center. And they are at the lower end of their scale and they have merit raises. So that is one of the reasons for the personnel increases. And in addition to the contractual increase that Mr. Brake spoke about earlier this evening. So I'm not going to repeat that over and over, but you'll see that in most of the significant note boxes. So I'll just skip to the next paragraph that a drug court probation officer is budgeted, although the grant revenue is not, because we do not budget for grant revenues until we're reasonably assured that we have them. um, but the court administrator believes that we will be doing a budget amendment later, probably maybe September or October, for the grant side of this. But as of now, we just have the expenditures. Contractual worker services is budgeted at $70,000 to cover the SoberLink alcohol testing. For persons in phase 1 of the program, these expenditures are anticipated to be reimbursed by the drug grant as well. Part-time wages are increasing due to the expectation that all the part-time positions will be filled next year, as they were not in 2021. JIRA fees are increasing $9,000 relative to year-end projected numbers for 2021, because they're assuming that jury trials will begin again, and they were not performed because of the pandemic. Postage and mailings increasing $60,000. It was zero because we were expending this out of a general cost center for the general fund. And we are trying to more directly allocate the postage costs to the user department. So that's why that's going to $60,000. Continuing on page 91, the court experienced significant repair costs with the HVAC system during the year. And due to the age and discovery of components that have not worked properly for many years. So they're asking for $25,000. Travel costs and training are increasing $13,000. And that's due to the cost being very low during the current year due to COVID. And then finally, capital improvements. They want to complete their LED lighting retrofit project, which is budgeted for $18,500, and that would finish the project off by completing the first floor, the basement, and the stairwells. City Manager's Cost Center is on page 87. Oh, 97.
97.
97.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Full-time personnel costs are increasing as a result of a reorganization of the manager's office. Proposed as a promotional opportunity of a job classification as a deputy city manager, and to be partially offset by a decrease in the economic development division. We'll talk about that position shortly in another slide. And this would be adding a position. Contracted worker services and travel are increasing $6,000 and $4,250. Training and education increasing $14,000. Books and subscriptions and electronic works and miscellaneous operating supplies are increasing $5,000 and $7,500 respectively. And then dues and memberships are increasing $14,800. And also this budget includes $10,000 for a financial transparency compliance web-based portal for robust forecasting, planning, and performance management. And also $3,200 for sustainability related memberships.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Mr. Brake, tell us about this new position.
So the position that I'm proposing is backfilling. Currently, it's held by the economic development manager, and that I'm recommending the incumbent be promoted to the deputy city manager. So instead of filling the economic development manager, it would be a specialist position that would provide support. The deputy city manager would still retain some of the economic development functions. But yep, having this new position that would help in that regard. I also see the potential, especially with the American Rescue Plan, that's whatever funding resources that we provide to externally outside of the organization, we're going to need better staff capacity to handle in processing those sort of requests that may come in from businesses, organizations, what have you. So that's kind of a high level view of what the economic development specialists would be involved in.
Macy?
Shar, you're muted.
So just to be clear, you would be promoting Mr. Fenton into that position.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So follow-up question. It's an increase of $270,000 in personnel services. I feel like that's more than we're paying you. Are you promoting Mr. Fenton above yourself?
No, you're not. So it's, I would say relative to, we have several costs associated with contractual sort of work that's being done on the sustainability, those elements. There's increased training costs that's associated with now having 3 full-time individuals that are involved in the city management profession. So that relative increase, that is not all due to wages, but the associated costs that are associated with the functions of the office.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bruce.
Mr. Bray, could you explain a little bit what the Financial Transparency Compliance web-based portal for robust forecasting and planning is?
What that entails is a program that would interface with our existing accounting program. It would add even more of a robust function than what we have currently. It looks at comparative data to peer communities of what they spend funds on, public safety or public works or whatever it happens to be. By increasing that transparency also provides an ability for the public, anyone, to utilize the functionality of it and to drill down into what expenditures that we have. I've used something similar to that in the last community where I worked and was embraced well by those who want to be in the know. But more importantly, I think it gives us better management information. And it gets back to the beginning of the presentation of when we were talking about the transmittal letter, and we'd say, look, if we do nothing, we're headed to a bad situation. How can we forego that? I think if we have better information to manage what these different decision-making paths that we can take and that can aid us in better informed decisions, this will help us out. There are a few vendors that I'm familiar with. Like I said, I've gone through that selection process and feel comfortable. And there's one that has very specific Michigan data that has of great interest that I think would be very useful for us.
So it's primarily a software package as opposed to hiring additional consultants and that kind of thing?
It's a web-based, it's not a software per se, but it's a web-based program that they basically, what they do is they pull information off of the Michigan Department of Treasury, and that's where you get that comparative data. So they have a lot of analytics that they pull that data from, and then it imports, Royal Oak, very specific information, and translates that as how that works. So could you say that there's a consulting cost that's associated with that? I would say a portion of it, but the big portion is the really paying for the content, the data that would enable us to, have that. It would be like an overlay. It would be on top of our webpage that, like I said, would make that available. But more importantly, it would have much greater internal use than it would than just someone that's perusing our webpage and wanting to find out, how much do we pay for trash cans or whatever, as an example. So.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor.
I can't see it, Commissioner Colo, but go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Brigg, I have a question about the 3,200 for sustainability related dues and memberships.
Okay.
That is great. I mean, this one of our goals and objectives, right? We are pushing for sustainability. What else are we doing for sustainability though? Because I've heard from the EAB that they need more resources. So what resources are we dedicating? I mean, we have a good goal right now of by what was 2030 for that 50% reduction, and then by 2050 is not that far away for net zero reduction. So what funds are we using to help the EAB achieve our environmental goals?
I want to say that the contractual line item, I know that our sustainability coordinator has made specific requests, and I've passed those along fully funded. And she received that from the Environmental Advisory Board. So whatever they collectively remind me, and I'll drill in, and I can email you and everyone else for that matter. But there were some specific asks that they made that was included in the budget as part of their work plan.
Okay, so we're giving our EAB the tools that they need to achieve the goals that we've asked them to.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
The House passes sweeping.
Okay, if we're ready to move on, page 100 is the elections cost center. Personnel costs are decreasing here because they are going to be using less staff due to only having one election. Miscellaneous contracted services are increasing $132,000, and that is due to the need for a maintenance agreement on the 30 election tabulators and the 24 ADA scanners for service years 6 through 10, which I believe they've been on warranty prior to this. Postage and mailing services are increasing $10,000. And again, what we are doing is we're pulling some of the bigger ticket cost centers out of our general pool of postage and allocating them directly to those cost centers. And then miscellaneous operating supplies are decreasing $20,000 due to the fewer elections in 2021. Finance cost center is on page 105. Personnel is increasing here due to the general statement that's in most of these. Plus, we have an addition of a full-time payroll person, which was upgraded from a part-time individual mid-year in 2021. Telephone service is decreasing due to the elimination of a city cell phone being used. And then training and education is increasing $4,000 because it was very low this year due to the pandemic. I don't believe we went to any trainings this year, so.
Ms. Rudd,
Yes.
quick question on this. Just looking at the narrative about the part-time employee becoming a full-time employee, page 107 on the cost center, the home base, shows that it's shows 8 full-time employees and 8 part-time employees for the last 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. So last year was a bit unusual. We typically did not budget this way, but what had happened is there was in 2021 a full-timer was requested, and the commission authorized them for 6 months. So we put the 8 positions in there for 2021, but it was funded for 6 months. So that's really the difference.
Thank you.
It's yeah. The assessing cost center is on page 111. There's an increase here in the assessing department, and it's partially offset by the elimination of a full-time appraiser position that was budgeted for half of the fiscal year. Same situation as what we just talked about in finance. There's also a request for adding some part-timers in place of that full-time position that's being eliminated. That is a vacant position, by the way. The part-time appraiser will share in the responsibility for new construction, renovations, demolitions, and annual sales reviews for accurate assessments and proper taxable values. Total reviews cannot be currently completed due to the limited staffing and the quantity of sales. The part-time appraisers will assist with updating records, such as the photographs and electronic sketches that have not been updated for approximately 20 years. Contracted services are increasing $10,000 due to potential additional appraisals needed to meet the possible increase in the number of MTT appeal cases. Training and education increasing $1,070. And that's due to anticipated attendance at the 2021 MAA state conference that was canceled in 2021 due to the pandemic. And then the motor pool rental charges are increasing $10,570. And that is due to increased depreciation because we are resuming the city's depreciation catch-up plan for fiscal year 21-22 that we put on vacation last year due to the pandemic and the concern for lower revenues. Page 115 is the city attorney's cost center. Personnel costs are increasing due to the normal reasons, in addition to filling the city attorney position as an employee. And then the contracted legal advisory is decreasing $20,000 due to no longer needing a budget for the interim contracted city attorney. City clerk's cost center on page 118. Personnel costs are increasing for those regular reasons, and then telephone service is increasing $850 due to historical usage. Advertising and legal notices are increasing $2,100 due to the need to change to an advertiser that publishes more frequently.
And on page 118, we've noticed that the birth certificates are going up from 6,800 to 7,000 to 7,500. It's very interesting to understand how people pass the time during the pandemic, but also the growing nature of families, growing in Royal Oak as well, maybe. Although I know that all comes out of Beaumont in different areas, but very interesting.
Well, I think part of that is right now, many of them are being processed at the county, and Ms. Hollis believes they'll start coming back to City Hall and fewer at the county. So that's part of the increase.
Yep, that's correct. Because of our limited hours and they can go to the county to get birth certificates, we have lost some revenue with that, but I'm sure when we start opening full-time, they'll be coming back.
Okay, good.
Okay. Human resources is next on page 122. Personnel costs are decreasing due to the elimination of a part-time position and downgrading of a second human resource specialist position, which is currently vacant, to a lower paid administrative assistant. This reduction will still allows for the newer employees who are not at the top of their range to get their merit increases. Tuition's increasing $3,000, anticipating an increase in departmental requests for additional education opportunities. And then civil service exams increasing $15,000 as alternative civil service testing arrangements were conducted in fiscal year 2021.
Mr. Mayor. Ms. Rudd, with the civil service examinations increasing, I guess what were we doing that we were saving that 15,000? And is there a reason why did the department provide a reason why we wouldn't continue to use that existing system?
I'm gonna see if Mr. Vandeler is on the Zoom call because I don't have the details on that.
We can come back to that question.
No problem.
Okay, I don't see. It does not appear that he is, so yes. I can ask.
And Mr. Brigg, I can wait until the next meeting for an answer to that.
Yeah,
You
okay.
don't need to rush to get Dennis on this meeting.
Okay, yeah, I'll find out about that.
Thank you.
On page 125 is the administrative cost center. This is where the pension and OPEB bonds are paid. Information services are increasing $146,570 due to an increase in planned expenditures by the IT department. And then miscellaneous contracted services, there's $100,000 budgeted, one-time budget for consulting services for a general fund administration user charge allocation methodology review. It's a long name. Basically, there was a study conducted probably 15 years ago by Raymond Robson, and they built a methodology to cost out the charges in the general fund to the user departments, that gets collected and it comes in as an indirect cost to the general fund from the various departments. And this is to look at that charge and that methodology and to re-examine it and make sure it's current and make any adjustments that need to be made. Page 128 is a Treasury Cost Center. And personnel costs are decreasing slightly due to a partial cost reallocation of the municipal clerk position to the water and sewer fund, as that individual is doing some additional work in that area. Postage and mailing are decreasing $3,300 based on historical usage. And office equipment is increasing $2,700 to hopefully they're looking to buy that currency counter that was deferred from when the commission asked what could be cut from last year's budget. This was one of the items. And then telephone services are increasing $2,550 based on recent actuals.
So can I ask a question, Mayor? So is this the time to ask, I mean, it looks to me like the actual administrative costs are not changing significantly, certainly not to the tune of $4 per water customer per year. So, I mean, I don't, maybe as was said earlier, this isn't information that we have tonight, but I mean, this is the right cost center, right? Where we're charging more for the, no? Does it seem like I'm crazy?
No, not yet.
Okay, all right.
Wednesday night, one of the Wednesday nights. I'm not sure how fast we'll get through this Wednesday, but no.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. Page 130 is the city office building cost center. We have part-time wages increasing to allow for additional hours for a door attendant, as it's anticipating that City Hall will be open more next fiscal year. Electric costs are decreasing $40,000. And gas $3,000 due to smaller square footage and efficiencies for the new City Hall. And the utility no longer being combined with the police station. And then postage is decreasing the $60,000 in part, mostly due to the court having their postage allocated and then directly to them, and also the elections cost center having their postage allocated directly to the election cost center. And then finally, motor pool charges are increasing roughly $1,000. And again, that's due to lifting the depreciation vacation that we had for 2021. Page 133. Parks and Forestry Cost Center, a lot going on here. We have the addition of the full-time DPS supervisor for Parks and Forestry and one additional full-time parks maintenance worker in consideration of the additional maintenance activities related to the Normandy Oaks Park and upcoming planned projects. Additionally, there's been a slightly higher allocation of DPS workers to those cost centers. Contracted worker services is increasing $12,000 for Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. Trees, shrubs, and plants are increasing $10,000 to provide additional shrubbery for screening at the Mark Twain Dog Park. And Parks and Grounds maintenance supplies going up $5,000 due to additional demand with the Normandy Oaks Park opening. Water costs are projected to increase $15,000, and that's due to the Normandy Oaks Splash Park opening. Motor pool charges increasing around $53,000, and that's due to lifting the vacation on our city depreciation catch-up plan. And then there are numerous capital projects. Golf center parking area improvement, approximately $400,000. The golf course clubhouse roof replacement, $150,000. Memorial Park parking lot improvements, $125,000. And park bench replacement, I believe that's from the ROCF of contribution, and that's $3,200.
So a quick question. Commissioner Macy might know the answer to this. Is the Parks and Recreation Master Plan process a one-year process, or is that going to take more than 1 year?
Just 1 year.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, maybe I'm making big promises. That's the plan.
Okay.
I also have a quick question here. And I don't know if now's the time to ask it or we ask it during the capital improvement plan, but I noticed this narrative talks about the roof replacement happening this year, but in 23 to 25, they're reconstructing the building also. Was it considered to do both those projects simultaneously, or is it known that we're doing one then the other?
I actually asked the same question today, but I think Mr. Filipski might be here to answer it as well. But the answer to this question is that they are pursuing partnerships that could possibly do that, because it would be nice to not have to spend $150,000 right before we spend $500,000 to replace this golf course. But we don't have $500,000 to do it right now, and the roof's not going to last that long.
The roof doesn't have 2 years left in it?
The roof has probably negative years left in it. Don't get Mike Rapinski started.
Okay, if there's nothing further on parks, building maintenance is page 135. And personnel costs are increasing mostly due to the request to add a full-time facilities manager position. And then we have tools hardware increasing $4,000 to purchase a replacement table saw. And motor pool fees are increasing slightly, $1,380, due to us lifting the suspension on the depreciation catch-up.
I'm just going to say real quickly that I'm very excited about the buildings manager position. I feel like that's something we know we've needed, and I'm really glad we're doing it.
Page 137 is ordinance enforcement. Personnel costs are increasing due to the potential for the filling of a full-time position. Currently, he's using a part-timer, and he's anticipating that that's gonna switch from part-time to full-time. And then training and education and dues and memberships are increasing $1,500 and $200 respectively, as the city will resume paying for these costs rather than the employees. That's my understanding. Page 1.
I'm sorry, quick question, Ms. Rudd. Does the state construction code fund at all supplement that this cost center?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Page 143, community development. Advertising notices are decreasing $10,000 due to the anticipation that the number and cost of advertising and legal notices will decrease, assuming remote meetings are discontinued. Contractors, worker services are budgeted to increase $300,000 to perform a master plan update. Page 145 is Animal Protection Cost Center. And there's a slight increase of $1,420. And that's just there due to a potential contract increase with the city of Berkeley for the animal control in the event that they request an increase. We have not been asked to pay an increase.
Let's definitely not show our cards in a public budget document.
We just did. Hopefully they're not watching. Chances are they are, though. Right? Page 147, Electrical Cost Center. Overtime wages are increasing $4,500 to reflect the increased activity in this cost center. Tools and hardware increasing $4,500, and that's to purchase a portable generator. And then motor pool charges are increasing $5,200. And again, that's for the catch-up depreciation. Engineering costs on page 150. We've got the personnel increasing due to higher allocation of engineering staff time here. And typically that is offset by permit revenue into the general fund. Additionally, higher annual required and recommended retirement and pension contributions, the typical reason for the increases are also the reason. Training and education are budgeted to, at $900 to allow for continuing education credits for the 3 staff engineers, which is a $300 increase. Page 153. Personnel is increasing due to slightly higher allocation of the city's electrician to this cost center as well, due to continued LED retrofitting on city streetlights, and due to an anticipated increase in accident-related repairs, which has led to a higher estimated year-end for fiscal year 2021 as well. Seems just there's been more accidents each year involving the need to repair the street lighting. The budget for electricity is increasing due to the addition of city-owned lights, which were discovered by DTE that occurred after the development of last year's original budget. So that's why you see the last year's budget fairly low.
Is DTE subtracting for all the outages of those lights?
I don't think so. Economic development, which is on page 156. Here, personnel costs are decreasing, and that's due to changing a economic development manager position to a lower paid economic development specialist position. Training and education and travel costs are increasing $1,000 and $7,000 respectively. And that's due to the lower cost this year due to COVID. Page 159 is community engagement. This budget includes $40,000 for a public relations firm for advertising for various events and $15,000 for the city centennial celebration event. Page 162 is cable communications. This budget includes $7,500 for live stream and video on demand services, which includes additional storage, $2,000 for playback system maintenance, and $20,000 for a repair contingency for equipment. Dues and memberships are increasing $5,000 due to the increase for payment to the Intergovernmental Cable Communications Authority membership fee. And as part of the city's annual replacement program in the motor pool, $200,000 was budgeted in fiscal year 2021 to replace the WROK cable van. However, it was not purchased and it will not be purchased in 2021 and pushed to 21-22. In addition, motor pool rental charges are increasing $37,000. And that's due to depreciation on the new vehicle and the continuation of the fourth year of the depreciation catch-up plan.
Mayor, I have a question here. Assuming that this is the right place to ask it, I'm going to ask Mr. Brake this question. The Comcast/Xfinity network is no longer broadcasting city commission meetings live. Will we be rectifying that?
Yes. That'll be part of the renovations that are being done across the street. I can't give you a definitive time frame, but don't let me lose track of that one. And it's something we have reached out to Comcast and to find out, what it would take to rectify that. So.
Oh, I won't let you lose track of it.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Speaking of WROK, we have great staff that work that and have kept, meetings going throughout this pandemic and before that. Where are they caught, and maybe I missed it, but my note here show, we don't have any personnel services in this cost center. So where's Richard and his team costed to?
He's not an employee. He has a contract.
Oh, okay. So and that's the entire department, all of the WROK, the various camera people and the services are all contracted out?
Correct.
Okay. And then, Mr. Brake, we've spoken in the past about, I think WROK has provided great access to people during the pandemic. You're able to go watch, a meeting of the Historical Commission, of the Historical District Study Commission, of all the different, different committees, commissions that we have. Where would we have to keep this up going into the future when the pandemic ends? Where would we have to add funds to make sure that there's money allocated to make sure that we could add that?
Commissioner Cola, that's pretty staff intensive, what you're asking. You know what, pre-pandemic, none of those meetings were televised. And I understand what you're saying, but you probably just off of the cuff, you'd have to double Richard's contract because he's going to have to bring on more staff to set up filming and the like, and it's more editing that goes into that. There's a lot of advantages of having the Zoom. We have some technical capability, but it's just, it'd be a wide angle camera. Let me talk to him, see, but the short answer is I think a lot of those smaller groups, those televised Zoom meetings, those are going to go away when those folks start meeting in person. unless we're willing to really incur a significant cost. And so just being quite blunt, I mean, if someone wants to be engaged in that, we either have to, encourage people to attend these meetings, or if there's a way that we could ask those groups to summarize information. It kind of goes back into that strategic plan on communications, and as well as evaluating the committees as a whole. So that's a little bit tougher not to crack. So I'm probably not answering your question, but I'm just giving you my honest assessment.
And I think too, that's a much deeper analysis as well, as far as what benefit does the community get out of, if 0 people are tuning in, I mean, we ran the city for 100 years without the benefit of television and, the internet. So, there's always trade-offs. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, page 164 is community promotions. Overtime is increasing $14,000, and that's due to anticipated increase in events due to lack of events in 2021. $5,000 is budgeted for the Memorial Day Parade contribution. $30,000 is budgeted for the CCCT program activities, coffee, tea expenses for the public and employee appreciation. $20,000 is budgeted for Royal Oak Youth Services. And then $2,000 is budgeted for Star House expenses. And page 168 is the transfer out cost center that I promised you earlier. Total expenditures for transfers out, $26,762,940. This includes $22.5 million budgeted to the Public Safety Fund and $500,000 budgeted to be transferred to the Senior Citizens Fund in accordance with the Public Safety Millage Plan. Due to the senior center's higher expenses and dwindling fund balance, the transfer to the senior center's fund has increased by $196,000 to $500,000 relative to the 2021 original budget. The forecast estimates of the transfer out to the Public Safety Fund will be as high as $26.5 million by fiscal year 25-26, and as high as $575,000 to the Senior Citizens Fund by that year as well. $465,000, is budgeted to be transferred for the court debt payment. 2.2 is budgeted for the WROK debt project payment. Debt service payment. $20,000 is budgeted for Arts Commission, and $2,000 to be transferred out for the Memorial Day Parade. $10,000 is budgeted as a transfer to IT to purchase computerized maintenance software for Parks and Forestry, and that is Parks and Forestry portion of the software that's being allocated to various funds. $23,240 is budgeted to be transferred to the Indigent Defense Fund to cover compliance expenditures related to the Michigan Indigent Defense Act. $994,000 is budgeted to transfer to ROCC Capital Projects Fund for the Centennial Commons Park bathroom facilities and a water feature. And then finally, $42,000 is budgeted to be transferred to the animal shelter to prevent the fund from going into a deficit position.
Um, I have one question for Paul. The 994 bathroom facilities and a water feature. So that's like, we already did some of that, right? Or we already approved some of that. And then now there's a bit as well for the bathroom. Is that yes, no?
That is correct. So what was
Okay.
approved by the commission was a contract modification for the water feature only. And so included in here, if you remember, we had some conversation saying, hey, let's figure out the specifics of the bathroom. And it may be a case of that if we have a possibility of, capital sort of improvements under the ARP program, maybe we reprogram that. But just for the sake of discussion, I wanted to include the cost of the restroom facility. Now, keep in mind, cost of construction has gone up considerably. Materials have gone up, and this may no longer be an accurate amount. This is based on, bids that were submitted in November of last year. So, but at least it was the last known figure that we included in there. So, in any event, when we had that discussion, it was kind of an unresolved issue. So I wanted to at least set the table to say that, look, we're setting aside some money and let's revisit this and get that done in some shape or form.
Okay, great. That's what I thought. And then a couple questions for Ms. Rudd. So the Indigent Defense Fund, is that 23,000? Is that really the amount that we pay? I know we get a grant for a large part of that. Is that 23,000 our actual portion of it, or would there be a grant that covers that eventually as well?
No, that's our piece.
That is our piece. Okay. And then the court debt fund. Did the DDA used to handle that amount?
Yeah. They probably stopped. I had to guess maybe 3 or 4 years ago. They stopped participating with that.
Oh, well, that's a shame. Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
If there's no other questions, we can move to page 196, which is the Public Safety Fund. Okay, and this is the revenue side of that fund only. The public safety millage is budgeted to generate $10.88 million based on the recommended millage rate of 3.712 mils. This is the 5th year of the 5-year renewal. Transfer of $22.5 million is needed from the general fund. The forecast assumes the millage will be renewed and levied beginning in fiscal year 22-23. By the last year of the forecast, the general fund transfer out is estimated at $26.5 million to the public safety fund to keep that fund out of deficit. However, that would cause the general fund to be in a deficit position that we looked at earlier this evening. On page 84, I believe it was. The estimated forecast only assumes the renewal of the public safety millage, and based upon estimated forecasts, the annual general fund operating deficit reaches nearly $9 million. The annual deficit, operating deficit, reaches nearly $9 million by the end of the forecast. Police cost recovery is budgeted to increase $30,000 or 27% based upon the assumptions of things beginning to ramp up there due to back to the level of pre-COVID activity. Ambulance service is budgeted to increase $100,000, and that's due to anticipated increase of transports such as due to the new facility, Henry Ford facility downtown. And then the transfer from the DDA remains budgeted at $540,000 for police services in the downtown area.
I think Commissioner Macy has a question.
Yeah, Ms. Rudd, so it says remains budgeted at 540,000. How long has that been the budget amount for that? Do you happen to know?
I'd say at least 5 years.
Yeah.
Has there been any, maybe this is for Mr. Brake now, has there been any thought or discussion, especially with the social district and the new downtown park, about increasing that pay from the DDA?
You know, that would be worthwhile revisiting. You know, I would include, and I'm not trying to confuse the issue here, but Ms. Rudd talked about the direct cost allocation that we receive when there's services that are provided for other funds. I could see using the same methodology to calculate what is the actual cost of the police department provides to the downtown area. You know, rather than just, you know, picking some random number, going through and you know, going through some sort of an audit or review or something like that. So I think, you know, I get a similar conversation with one of the other commission members. I don't have a problem of visiting that with the DDA board, because you're right, because of those increased programs and things like that, it's going to have some impact on the police department. We want to make sure that the downtown is, you know, calling it what it is, or just paying their fair share.
While you're at it, ask him about the court debt fund.
Okay, all right. This is the first I heard of that, so good point.
Okay. Page 197, just it takes a look at the public safety fund on its own. And again, just want to mention, this assumes a renewal of the 5-year millage, and it keeps the transfer that's in the general fund, transfer out, keeps this fund in the black. You know, of course, that transfer can be lowered to reduce this fund balance, ending fund balance. So it's just a matter of probably a few $100,000 though. So. Page 200 are the police department's expenditure notes. Personnel costs are increasing over $1 million due to the general reasons that have been mentioned earlier. In addition, weapons proficiency is increasing by $36,000 due to a contract increase from 1,000 to 15 per officer, and also due to a number of officers vacancies being filled. Communication systems and parts are increasing $108,000, and this is for the purchase of 17 new prep radios in preparation for the Oakland County upgrade, overhaul of the public safety radio system, which is to be fully functional by the end of 2022. Clemens Services is increasing $17,000 to purchase a new live scan machine. Miscellaneous operating supplies are increasing approximately $27,000 for the purchase of AEDs, digital cameras, and preliminary breath tests. Uniforms, clothing, and gear are increasing $5,000 due to a need to purchase new crowd control uniforms. And then training and education increasing $10,000 due to the increase in 21-22 due to the lower expenditure in 2021 due to COVID. In addition, cleaning and janitorial supplies are increasing $10,000 due to additional services needed for the larger police station. Telephone services increasing $2,000 due to increase of offices and phone lines in the new station. Elevator repair and maintenance are decreasing $2,000 because the station's under warranty. Gas utility increasing $5,000 due to anticipated higher use for the larger police station. Electricity for the new police station is budgeted at $66,000 and will be reevaluated and adjusted as usage becomes available. And then finally, information services are increasing $120,000 due to increase in planned expenditures by the IT department, which includes $30,000 for team rooms at the Emergency Operations Center and $11,000 for police training and policy tracking system replacement. And okay. Page 205. This is the fire cost center. Training and education and materials for public sale and distribution are increasing $11,000 and $1,500 respectively. And that's due to the lower usage in 2021 due to COVID. Capital improvement projects for next year. Many of these were placed on hold last year, which include the security remodel for $15,000, HVAC system replacement for $140,000, Station 1 roof replacement for $310,000, fire stations 1, 2, and 3 exhaust system upgrades for $30,000, and then concrete apron slab repair for Station 2 at $60,000. And a portion of that is a carryover from the current fiscal year. In the motor pool fund, as part of the annual vehicle replacement project, there is a budget of $720,000 for a Rosenbauer pumper tanker and $43,000 for a replacement F-350 truck. Motor pool rental is increasing $228,500 due to resurrecting the depreciation catch-up plan, and then information services charges are increasing $26,000, and that is due to IT's increased total expenditures being allocated to the various departments. Okay, ambulance cost center is on page 209. Personnel budgets decreasing relative to the original 2021 budget due to a reduction in pension expense allocation to the ALS function. And paramedic premium is increasing $5,000 due to an increase in number of employees eligible for the premium. Ambulance billing expenditures are increasing $6,000 because we're anticipating more EMS runs and higher ambulance revenue. Training and education is increasing $9,000 due to the lack of training last year and anticipating training next year. Fire and EMS supplies are increasing $10,000 due to Oakland County providing COVID-19 supplies in fiscal year 2021, as well as an anticipated increase in the supply costs. Memberships and dues increasing $7,000 due to customer satisfaction surveys that were previously provided by Oakway. And then the motor, in the motor pool, as part of the vehicle replacement program, there is an ambulance budgeted for $250,000, which was moved up in the replacement program due to reliability concerns on a current ambulance in service. Motor pool rental charges are increasing approximately $25,000 due to the catch-up plan for the depreciation recovery. And then EMS tablets are budgeted at $25,000.
Mr. Mayor, for me. Thank you, sir. Mr. Rudd, so if I understand that, is that $25,000 to buy a new ambulance, or is that changing out to or repairing an ambulance there?
$250,000 is for a new replacement ambulance.
Okay. And that would also lead to service, that would lead to service at Station 3?
I will let the fire chief respond to that.
I'm sorry. So I'm looking at page 22 of the transmittal letter, and it discusses what an ambulance would do. So I'm just trying to understand that a little bit better.
Yes, sir. What we're talking about is with the three current ambulances that we have. The fourth ambulance is the backup to the front three ambulances. So it has become, it's died on several runs, and we're having a hard time keeping it running. So it would be to support the front three ambulances. Station 3's ambulance runs intermittently. So, you know, if it were ever to run again, we would absolutely need it. But where we're at right now, the ambulance at Station 3 acts as more of a backup to the Station 1, Station 2 ambulances right now. And what happens is that's all we have. So when Station 3 does run and it is in service, we essentially have no backup. So what we wanted to do was pull that timeline up so that we can always have a backup to the front three ambulances.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay. No other questions?
I don't see any.
Well, we've worked through our agenda. I don't have anything further for this evening.
So I think we're at a point where obviously we got a couple more meetings scheduled here. Ms. Rudd, can you give us an idea of what to expect at the next meeting so we can be prepared? I mean, I know it's been documented, but just for a quick reminder for everyone, we're going to go over some of the enterprise funds and the rest of the departments.
Yeah, I believe what we'll do is it's probably easier to go in budget order. Would you agree if you can do the book? Does everyone prefer that? Okay, yeah. So basically, yeah, we'd start with the special revenue tab. And of course, we can skip over public safety, but yeah, we can go through, we'd start with major streets and, you know, see how far we can get. You know, this Wednesday, I believe we're limited to 2.5 hours. See how far we get, and we'll just go in budget book order.
And I think, Ms. Rudd, for the benefit of our newer commissioners too, you're open to, you know, if they're looking at this between now and Wednesday, either have questions about tonight that maybe they were a little reluctant because they were detail oriented or too detailed, or for the upcoming accounts, they can read, look at, and feel free to send you questions ahead of that to get answers. I mean, you're fully prepared to help answer those prior to the next meeting. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know this has been past practice.
Yes.
Okay. And you, as a finance person, love to be prepared. So getting questions ahead of time is always better, I imagine, for your process. Okay. I think we're at, is everyone, I mean, any other questions for Ms. Rudd, Mr. Brake, the chiefs? If not, we're at other business / adjournment. If there's other business we need to discuss, anything from anyone? Speak up. I can't see all of you. I can only see Commissioner Macy and her tail. Oh, it wasn't hers. It's not pointed. Okay. All right. Well, I don't hear anybody. So, Mr. Brake, Ms. Rudd, did you have anything for other business, or is this something that you just had for us here as a placeholder to talk about? The latter?
Yes. The latter.
I would concur.
Okay, well, notwithstanding anything else, I know we have an aggressive schedule on the 19th. More questions we can get answered ahead of time, the quicker we can get through the material in a proficient and professional and in a way that gets the most efficacy out of this process. So we'll entertain a motion to adjourn if someone's so inclined. If you just want to do it verbally, that's fine. The motion
Also move.
to adjourn. All right, motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion on the adjournment. And I'll call for the vote. Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Commissioner Macy,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubak,
Yes.
Commissioner Perush.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt,
Yes.
Commissioner Colo,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, great. Great work, staff. Thank you. We know how hard this is to pull this together, and we appreciate you taking the time, and good document, good kickoff to the budget season, and this might be the first time I've said this. I look forward to the second meeting. So everyone have a great night. Stay safe. We'll see you again in a couple days. Bye.